Welcome back to our special discussion right here on News First. Ambassador, what is the way forward for Sri Lanka in terms of reconciliation and accountability?
I think Sri Lanka has the answer, and I keep coming back to the LLRC recommendations, and not. I say that because they covered a wide range of issues. They talked about human rights writ large. They talked about freedom of the press. They talked about accountability. They talked about rule of law, about ethnic reconciliation, all kinds of things. And they really, I think, did a great job in general in that. And I think, and it's the government's own product, and it's what citizens of this country want this government to implement. So I think you've got your way forward right there. In terms of the relationship with the U.S., bilaterally, I think we're on solid footing. I will say, in my almost 3 years here, even though there have been some tense moments, government to government and all of that, and some unhappy developments, on both sides, I've always been able to have access to the senior-most leadership of this government. People have always been willing to talk to me, to exchange views. So I felt that I was able to be an effective representative of my government and to convey back to my government how Sri Lanka felt. So despite all the fuss and the headlines, I think it's a very solid relationship, and I'm confident Ambassador Sison will continue.
Ambassador, the United Nations too released a report on Sri Lanka, which is named here in Sri Lanka commonly as the Darusman report. So you all do not want this particular report to be taken into the subject, but the report submitted by the LLRC, or the Sri Lankan government itself, which is named as the Lessons Learned and Reconciliation Commission report. So you all want this particular report to be fully implemented, and that is the requirement. That is the requirement of the international community. Am I right?
No, you shouldn't talk about requirements. Okay, what we have looked for, and again, I cannot speak on behalf of the international community. I speak on behalf of my government. What we want to see is a Sri Lanka where every community feels at home, where people feel they can contribute, where people are not afraid, where people have confidence in the rule of law. And Sri Lanka is making efforts to head in that direction. And we see the LLRC report primarily because, and I'll use one of Minister Peiris's favorite phrases, it's a homegrown report. It's a homegrown solution. It's there. I have said, and we continue to believe, that it falls short on accountability, but if all the other recommendations were implemented, you'd be a long ways to the kind of society where everybody would feel part of it and contributing.
3 years, almost 3 years, Ambassador here in Sri Lanka, tough times right after the end of the conflict, and now again the US is on the spotlight as far as the Sri Lankan government is concerned. How has it been for you over the last 3 years?
I never like to be bored. And you've saved me from being bored. I'm thinking about this a lot, obviously, as I get ready to leave, and I have a couple of thoughts. One is, and I know this is a cliche, but you have such a beautiful country. It is breathtaking, and I have made an effort to see as much of it as I can. And I look out the view of my office window onto the ocean, and I just can't feel so lucky to have that kind of view and to be in such a gorgeous country. So I have to say that. A second point is that this is a very complicated country. You have a very complex society, and it's almost impossible for an outsider to appreciate that until they're on the ground. And I'm still learning nuances of all kinds of elements, that how the different ethnic and religious communities interact, and the history that stretches back thousands of years, the relationship with the neighbors, all of that plays into it. And so it takes a while to sort through that. And sometimes that means that our solutions may sound simplistic, and I know Sri Lankans say, well, they don't understand this, or she doesn't get that. And sometimes that's true. But you really have to be here to try to sort through this. The third thing I would say, and this is my strongest impression, is that I have met such incredibly committed, talented people in Sri Lanka in all walks of life, all communities, all religions, that very little sometimes to do with the government or with the political class, but they all have a vision of what Sri Lanka should be and could be, and they're working toward it on their own. I mean, you know, some of them get assistance from us, others don't. I've met young Air Force, Army, Navy officers, you know, whom we send for training to the U.S., and they come back enthused and ready to work for their country. I've met journalists who, at the risk of their lives sometimes, want to get the truth out. I've met NGOs who are just working quietly, hoping not to draw too much attention, and just trying to make a better society. I've met doctors, you know, physicians here who can make a good salary, who are committed to helping the poor. And you know, I want to say that the diaspora, and there's more than just the Tamil diaspora, there's a Sinhalese diaspora, and representatives of those communities are also working here, and they're working together, and they don't get publicity, they don't look for it, but they're all trying to make this a better place to live. It sounds corny, but that's what I'll take with me, that you've got all the talent you need here. You just need the political will to let that talent be utilized.
Where would you be assigned ambassador?
I'm going after 14 years overseas. I've been out 14 years. They were threatening to take my passport. No, that's a joke. I'm going to go back to our training institute in Washington and be one of the deans for training. And I'll be there for at least 2 years. But I will, this is a warning, I will always keep my eye on Sri Lanka. Okay.
Ambassador, what message are you going to take back home, back to the United States? 3 years of experience here in Sri Lanka. What message are you going to take back home?
I think I'm going to say that despite the difficulties, despite the arguments, the disagreements, our investment, and I don't mean this necessarily in financial terms, and our interest in Sri Lanka is worth it. Sri Lanka, I think, is happy to remain in the democratic camp. Sometimes we feel it needs support to stay there, but the return is so rewarding that I think that we need to stay engaged, and I think that's what the Sri Lankans want as well.
Final question, Ambassador. If there is a shift in government following the November 6th presidential election, let's say a Republican is elected as a president of your country, I want to know, will there be a shift, a drastic change in foreign policy in your country?
I don't think you'll see a drastic change at all, because we adhere to the same principles, and our principles that underlie our policy here in Sri Lanka are based on respect for human rights, the community of democracies, and really sharing the interests that we have in common with Sri Lanka. So while obviously I cannot speak for any future administration, I don't see any major shift. We'll remain engaged and we'll continue to promote the same values and principles we have so far.
Ambassador, I wish you all the very best for the future, and thank you very much for joining us right here on News.
Thanks a lot.